So we are going for live so that it is automatically recorded in YouTube. Okay. So let's see the next slides. So next thing, another important concept is leads and lags. You may get one question also from here, leads and lag. So when we are considering the relationship and dependency between the activities, one important thing you also need to consider is leads and lags. What is lead? For example, when we are doing the roof casting, ছাদ ঢালাই দিচ্ছি আমরা roof casting. At the second day, immediately on the second day, we can't do anything on the roof. It takes 20 to 28 days for this casting to properly what I say, মানে জমার জন্য বা properly ঠিক হওয়ার জন্য. So after 28 days, we can start other activities on the roof. So if we use just like this roof casting, and then next activity is say new piling on the roof or new pillar creating on the roof. So this new pillar, and if we say this relationship is finished to start, then what happened? What happened? After roof casting, immediately next day we can start pillar creation on the roofs. But actually, practically, that is not possible. So that's why we actually use lags. Lags mean actually pushing the successor activity further. That if we write like this, fs plus 28 days, that means when this activity will finish, after 28 days, we can start this activity. So this type of relationship is known as lagging. So we are lagging or pushing the successor activity further by here, in this case, further by 28 days. So this is actually lagging. All right. So this actually required in different kind of project activity, these things required. And another is lead. Lead means just opposite of lag. Say one activity is A and it takes say 10 days. Another activity is say B, which will take 5 days. So total how many days we need? We need total 10 days, 15 days, right? 15 days. But if the activities are not mandatory, they are discretionary type activities, that means it is in our discretion which activity we should start first, or can we do it parallelly or not. So those kind of activities which are not discretionary dependence, mandatory dependency, we can actually use lead. For example, if I write the same thing like this, A activity 10 days, and what I am doing here, after 5 days. After 5 days, I am starting activity B. And I am showing the relationship like this. And I am writing this finish to start minus 5 days. That means what? Earlier, after 10 date, we can start the activity B. But now what we did? We said that finish to start minus 5. That means when this predecessor activity already done by 5 days, then we can start the B activity. So what we are doing, we are actually providing or giving lead to the successor activity by 5 days. We are starting the later activity or successor activity 5 days earlier than the earlier plan. So that is known as actually leading. So leading means what? If we use lag, then actually this extend the time. But when we use lead minus, then actually it squeeze the or compress the time. All right, so this is the difference between leads and lag.
রেজা ভাই লাস্টেরটা একবার বলবেন সামারিটা, when we do the lead then what is going to be the impact?
So you can see also here, so lag adds time and lead removes time. All right, it is compress or shorten the time of completing the two activities. And when we are using lead, it actually, if you see the figure, if we use lead, sorry, mouse is jumping. If you see this figure, when we are using lead, then actually these two activities are happening in parallel. In parallel, some of the portion it is happening in parallel. All right, but generally in lag case, it actually pushes the later activity, the successful activity by further duration. So this is actually lead and this is actually lag. So lag adds time, total time increased, but lead removes time. That means total time of doing those two activities will be shortened. All right.
So basically it reciprocate the meaning of leads and lag. No, I mean the opposite meaning, which usually comes in PMI way.
Okay. So there is a problem here. This is a tough problem. This is actually depending upon the concept we have learned so far. These are the activities A, B, C, D, and this is milestone 1, this is milestone 2. Most probably you can get a question in PMI exam like this question. And this is one of the difficult questions, but the same concept is used. And it is actually mentioned here which activity takes how many days. So the math is actually how many days you need to come from milestone A to milestone B. So that is the question. Activity A has a duration 20 days, activity B 10 days, activity C 5 days, and activity D 6 days. So from milestone A to milestone B, if you want to come from A to B, how many days you will need to complete all these activities between these two milestones? So this is the question. So I am not solving the problem right now. This will be a home task for you. Try to find out the answer. There are 4 options here, and one answer is correct from here. So try to find out the right answer, and in the next class we will solve this. All right, so if we use project management software, that is actually very important when you are doing scheduling, because that will actually make your life easy. So we are talking about sequence activities outputs. The main output of sequence activities is project schedule network diagram, and generally it looks like this. All right, so these are the activities name, and this is the beginning of the project, the start date, and this is the ending of the project. And in the middle, all of the activities, those we have identified from where? From work packages and activities, right? So those activities are all this. Just name are not given the proper name, just A, B, C, D are used. And you see, these are the relationship that we just read in today's class and last class. So start to start, and between these two activities, there are 15 days. What is this? Lagging, right? So after finishing F, after 15 days, we can start G task. And this arrow actually showing the relationship between the tasks. And this rectangle, this is the PDM thing, precedence diagram method. In precedence diagram method, the activity is shown as rectangle, and the activity name is put in the middle, and at the top duration is written, how many days it will take, this A activity. And on the arrow, the relationship are mentioned on the arrow. So if there is no mention of relationship, not finished to start to start, or anything, any of the four. So can anyone say this B and E means what? What type of relation? Is it finished to start to start, or what? That is not mentioned here, right? Not mentioned here, not mentioned here. Somewhere it is mentioned. So when it is not mentioned, then actually what type of relation is this? Can anyone say?
Discretionary.
No, I am talking about relationship, logical relationship, finish to start, finish to finish. There are four types.
Finish to start.
Yes, it is always finish to start. The arrow actually showing that if I don't finish G, I cannot start, finish the end. Or if you see here, you have to finish H before you start F. So this is actually finish to start relationship. So generally, if you use finish to start relationship, you don't need to mention because it is obvious, mostly used. But if you use other type of relationship, then actually you need to mention clearly that the relationship. All right. So mostly used relationship is finish to start, and rarely used is the opposite, start to finish. All right. So this will be the network diagram when we will do the sequence activities process. So let
Reza bhai,
me,
এখানে
please.
SS plus 10, start to start plus 10.
That means what? Right.
জি.
Okay. So for example, we put H and I start to start plus 10 days I. That means if this H start on 1st December 2020, then actually I will start plus 10 days, after 10 days of starting this activity. That means 11 December, we can use activity I.
Okay.
All right. So this is meaning this actually.
আরেকটা এখানে ছিল যে প্রজেক্ট ডকুমেন্টস আপডেট ইনক্লুড বাট নট লিমিটেড টু, এটা বলতে কি বোঝাচ্ছে অ্যাক্টিভিটি লিস্ট?
Oh, এটা তো যে if we go back and see the diagram, it is talking about this thing actually.
ওকে.
This one. Yeah. Mouse is okay. Project document updates. These four can be updated, and in everywhere you will see in PMBOK, not limited to.
ওকে, মানে
This phrase is used. That is open.
অপশনটা ওপেন রাখছে আর কি।
It is not mandatory.
জি।
Only these four will be updated. Others document you cannot update. That is not mentioned here. It is open actually. So PMBOK was not that prescriptive. Not prescriptive. Actually, you can do a lot of things of your own. No problem on that.
এবার আমার এখানে একটা কোশ্চেন আছে, সেই কোশ্চেনটা হচ্ছে কি বেসিক্যালি এই যে ক্যান ইউ গো ব্যাক টু দ্য স্লাইড? এই যে ITTO it was a like first iteration ke we will be getting to know this all the things যে activity list, assumption log, first iteration ke we will be getting all this thing as an output sequence activity তে first iteration ke we will be getting to know all the outputs এই 2 নম্বর পয়েন্টে যেগুলো পাচ্ছি।
Activity attributes. Oh, this one. This output we have already got in the earlier process, define activities. Then define activity process, we have already created these activities. So that is actually taken as input here. And after doing this process, if there is any update required, then you can update all those. Okay. So yes, first iteration you will get this. Okay.
Okay. ঠিক আছে জি
Because you have to follow the sequence. In scope chapter, we have broken down the project into WPS, and in this chapter, through define activities, we have broken down work package to activities, and those
Activity.
activities we are now actually sequencing.
জি
We are creating the network diagram. But
জি
in the second iteration, if you identify any new work package,
জি
for example, you have got another new work package that you need to break down into activities, then define activities will happen. With
হুম
that process, it will be broken down to activities, and here it will be again used to sequence the activities.
জি
Okay.
তার মানে the project document updates is a normal way of doing things as an output মানে এটা আসবেই
And everywhere you will see these two actually common. One is project document updates, and another one is planning document updates. So if it is not mentioned that planning document is not updated, but you can update this. If required, you can do anything. No restriction.
জি
That for the exam, just you need to remember where it is updated or not. That you need to remember for the exam. But for real life project management, you can do anything. All right, so this is the output. When you are creating network diagrams, some rule of thumbs is very important to remember. So there should be a starting point and ending point of the network diagram. And there are predecessor for all activities and successor for all activities. And there are no loops. Loops, I am meaning loops by actually deadlock. You will not see any deadlock situation. So if you see, if all the activities are having predecessor and successor, all activities. All right, and there are no loop. Loop means deadlock situation. From start to end, there are a lot of paths, you see. So this is at one path. In this path, you can actually move from beginning to start. So everywhere, if you follow any path, you can reach the end using any path. It will not happen like that. The deadlock situation, you cannot go to the end. That will not happen in the network diagram. So these are the actually rule of thumb. And there will be no hangers. No hangers mean you will not find any activity which are not having predecessor and successor. Every activity is having predecessor and successor. Hanger means like this. The activity is just floating and no connection with the end. And no, it is not just it is floating. No. Everywhere you will see predecessor and successor with all the activities. So when you are creating network diagram, just you need to keep this rule of thumb to follow.
Sir, I have a question.
Please.
স্যার ওই সফটওয়্যারের ক্ষেত্রে যদি আমি চিন্তা করি সফটওয়্যারটা ততক্ষণ পর্যন্ত লঞ্চ করা হবে না যতক্ষণ পর্যন্ত মানে এক্সাক্ট আমার আউটপুটটা না আসবে ততক্ষণ পর্যন্ত টেস্টিং করবে তারপর আবার রিপ্রোগ্রাম করবে তারপর আবার যদি ওকে হয় ওকে না হয় আবার রিটেস্ট করবে তো এইভাবে মানে এটাও তো একটা মানে লুপ ওয়ার্কের মধ্যে পড়তেছে না
বুঝলাম না
মানে স্যার একটা সফটওয়্যারের আউটপুট যেটা মানে আমি যে আউটপুটটা চাচ্ছি ওই আউটপুটটা না আসা পর্যন্ত মানে টেস্টিং এর পরে আবার তো মানে চেক করা হয় যে আউটপুটটা আসছে কিনা না আসে তারপর আবার রিপ্রোগ্রাম হচ্ছে আবার টেস্টিং হচ্ছে এরকম ভাবে একটা লুপিং হচ্ছে না বা এই ক্ষেত্রে মানে এটা
But I am talking about deadlock situation. In programming, you will see sometimes it is showing undefined or infinity লুপের মধ্যে পড়ে যায় প্রোগ্রামিং লিখতে গিয়ে এবং হ্যাং করে যায় একদম হ্যাঁ আপনার তো কম্পাইলার শাটডাউন করতে হবে সো আই এম টকিং অ্যাবাউট দ্যাট সিচুয়েশন নেটওয়ার্ক ডায়াগ্রামে এরকম কিছু পাবেন না যে খালি মানে ডেডলকে পড়ে গেছে এখান থেকে বের হতে পারছে না এরকম না
আচ্ছা
ঠিক আছে আপনার যে টেস্ট করতেছেন করতেছেন আবার করতেছেন করে কিন্তু ফাইনালি আপনি বের হবেন তাই না সেটা ইউ ক্যান ডু নো প্রবলেম
এক্স্যাক্টলি
কিন্তু যে বের না হতে পারেন যদি কম্পাইলারে হ্যাং করে দ্যাট মিন্স মানে কোনো একটা ভুল করছেন যার কারণে এটা লুপে পড়ে গেছে ইনফাইনাইট লুপে পড়ে গেছে মানে 1 কে যদি 0 দিয়ে ভাগ করেন তাই না
এক্স্যাক্টলি
Okay, so let me draw a network diagram with your participation. All right. So there is a table here shown here. So in the table, in the first column, we are seeing the names of the activities, and in the next column, the predecessor of all these activities. So from here, from this table, can we draw the network diagram? So how can we draw the network diagram? Let me show you. This is very simple. First thing, what you need to do, you need to write start, starting of the network diagram. Then activity A, and if you see the start, it has no predecessor, right? So there is no predecessor of S start. Then activity A, and activity A has a predecessor that is a start. That means we have to put A somewhere like this place, and we can draw a arrow. That means what? A activity has a predecessor that is start, right? You understand? So activity A has a predecessor, and that is a start. Then B activity has a predecessor, and that is A. That means we have to draw B somewhere in this place. B. That means B is having a predecessor, and that is A. Are you getting me? Then C. So where we put C? We have to put C here, and we have to draw arrow to show that B is the predecessor of C. Then you see D. D is one activity that has a predecessor, and that is actually start. That means we should not put it here, right? We have to put it like this, D, because this predecessor is start. So we are getting another path actually, right? And then E. So where shall we put E? E? Where? In this path or this path? Where we will put E? Can anyone say?
On D, after D.
After D, right? After D, we should put E. All right. Then F. So if we draw F, this predecessor of B. That means we have to draw here, because its predecessor is B. All right. Then G. So G's predecessor is C. So we need to draw somewhere after the C. Okay. Then H. H is predecessor is D. Then that means we need to draw here. After D, we can start H or H. Then I. So I will have two predecessors. See, I will have two predecessors, E and H. That means where shall I put? We have to put here, and we have to draw two arrows, right? E and H. Then we can start I. All right. And let me draw the last one. Okay, I have put everyone to mute because someone was talking. All right, so see the last one. Finish FGI. That means there will be a point, finish, FINISSH, finish, and each predecessor are three predecessors. One is F, so draw a line from F, then G, draw another line from G, and I, draw another line from I. So if you see, every activity is having predecessor and a successor, and how many paths are here? Can anyone tell me how many paths are here? So this is one path, right? Path means from start to end, in which path we can move from start to end. So this is one path, A, B, C, G. Another
Chapter,
path
sir.
is, hello?
Chapter maybe.
Chapter, right. So another one is this path. Another one is this path. And another last path is, the fourth path is this one. All right. So sometimes in exam, very simple question comes. How many paths there are in this network diagram? So answer will be 4 paths. All right. So this way, just only looking the or seeing the predecessor, we can draw the network diagram. So that's why the name of precedence diagramming method come from here. Just seeing the predecessor of a activity, we can draw the network diagram. That's why the technique is known as precedence diagramming method.
Reza bhai, in that case, without drawing the diagram, can we take an inference? Is it possible? No, or I will have to invest time over here.
Yeah, you have to invest time over here. Otherwise, you may make mistake.
Okay.
So it is always better to draw this. You will get a whiteboard in your exam system. So on that whiteboard, you can draw like this.
Okay.
So you should draw the in the whiteboard, and also, and that whiteboard actually expandable. That means you can expand at any side, right, left, below. So you should not delete this, because sometimes what happens after 3-4 questions, you may get another question related to the same network diagram.
Okay.
So if you delete that, then again you need to draw, and that will take time. So it is always better to keep that, because the page is actually unlimited. You can draw right anywhere. Okay.
Okay. Good tips. Thank you.
Network diagram actually mostly comes very easy network diagrams. But if you see any complex network diagram, then actually put that for review or mark it for review, because it will take 4 or 5 minutes only for 1 marks. So it is better to come back later on if you see the question is very tough. Otherwise, generally this type of questions, generally it is easier to answer.
Okay.
All right, so estimate activity durations. So what we did so far, we have break down the work packages into activities, and we have sequenced those activities and make our network diagram. Now, this chapter, what we are actually targeting to do, our main target is getting the schedule, making the schedule of the project. And also another target is which activity will take how much time, and which activity will start when and finish when, and also the whole project when start and when finish. So how can we do that? We have to calculate duration for each activity. Then solving the network diagram or analyzing the network diagram, we can use using the critical path method that we'll see in the later processes. So using the critical path method, we can easily find out the project schedule, and we can also find out when each activity will start and each activity will finish. So from this chapter, this process, not chapter, this process, our target is find out the duration for each activity. All right. If you see the name, estimate activity durations. That means from work package, we have find out the activities, and now another task, another responsibility of project manager or project team to find out the duration for each activity. All right. So if we can get or estimate each activity duration of this work package, then we can easily find out the work package total duration. So similarly, if there are say 50 work packages, and for each work package you have on an average 5 activities, then you can easily calculate the project duration. All right. That actually I shown you in the last class, how to breaking down the survey work package. And I have actually shown you the concept that from work package, from WBS, work package and activity, we can find out the project schedule, also find out the cost of the project. So now we are actually talking about the techniques, tools and techniques that we will apply to find out duration for each activity of each work package. All right. So what will be our main input here? Scope is one important input. Then activity attributes, activity list, then milestone list, and if you see these four I am drawing here, these four input has we took this from actually resource management chapter. Chapter number 9 will discuss about project resource management. From that chapter, these inputs are taken. All right, because if you don't know which resources are working in which activity, you cannot actually get the actual value of the actual duration. What does it mean? It means actually for a activity, say for one activity A, if you use a novice or new employee who is not having any experience, maybe he will take 10 days to complete this. But if you can involve an experienced guy, maybe he will finish this task in 3 days. So that's why before actually finding out the duration, you also need to understand in which activity who is going to work. So that will actually help you to find out the estimate more accurately. So that's why these four inputs that will be generated in the resource chapter. And what does it mean? Let me explain. Project team assignment. Team assignment means that thing, who is actually going to do this activity. All right, because based on that actually duration counts. And resource breakdown structure, it will help you. Resource breakdown structure means we have talked about work breakdown structure, right? Breaking the project into components. Resource breakdown structure is the resources you need for the project that you will break down by category. For example, we need programmers, we need engineers, say we need testers, we need architects. So these are the groups. Then under this programmer, you may break down again senior programmer, junior programmers, right? So this kind of hierarchical diagram is known as resource breakdown structure. Then another important thing that you will get in the resource chapter, that is resource calendar. What is resource calendar? That means before doing the duration counting, duration estimation, we need to know the calendar of every resource. For example, one resource will be on leave on December. So if you involve any resource who is on leave, who will be on leave on December in any activity which is happening in December, then that work will not be finished because he will be on leave. So you need to know the calendars of the resources that you are going to involve in the activity. So that is known as resource calendars. And resource calendar is not only tagged with the people resource or team resource, it is also tagged with the facilities, equipment, or machineries. For example, one machinery, say excavator is used in one project now. So at another project, if you want to use that excavator, so what will happen? You need to wait and you need to find out when that excavator is free for your project. So you have to use those resource calendar when you are estimating for your activity durations. And the last one is resource requirements. That means for each activity, what type of resource you need and how and what quantity resource you need. Those two things is known as resource requirements. To complete activity A, what type of resource I need and how many resource I need or how much resource I need. So that is actually resource requirements. So these four input we have taken from the resource chapter. That means before doing this process, right, we need to complete one process. These four are actually output of one process of resource chapter, and the name of that process is estimate activity resources. The name of the process is estimate activity resources. We will see this in the resource chapter. That means what type of resource we need to complete an activity. So that thing we will get in resource chapter, and from there we will use this for as inputs. So before doing this process, please remember you have to complete this process in the resource chapter. All right. Okay, so these are the inputs. Now, what are the tools? What are the tools? I will talk about 4 or 5 new tools here, and from each tool, you may get one question in the exam. So we need to understand what each tool set technique means. That we need to understand. So what we are going to do, we are going to estimate duration for each activity. So how can we estimate? Say for example, activity A, we want to estimate how much time it will require to finish activity A. We can use our expert judgment, our previous experience, or other experts who worked similar kind of projects, similar kind of activities. So from him, we can take expert judgment. All right. So this is a simple technique that we are, that tool technique that we are using for most of the planning processes. Second tool that is very important, and you may get one question from analogous estimating. Analogous estimating means, for example, you have done similar kind of project earlier and same kind of activity you did earlier. So from there using the analogy, you can say that the same activity, the earlier project, it take 10 days. So as this is the similar activity, it will also take 10 days. So if you estimate using some previous experience analogy, then that is actually known as analogous estimating. And from historical data, if you estimate. Then let's discuss parametric estimating. Parametric estimating, that is actually we use very frequently. For example, say we are going to put tiles in our floor. So if one tiles take 10 minutes time to put on the floor, and the floor size is say 300 square feet. All right. So then we can easily calculate how much time we need to finish the floor. So tiles, we want to put tiles, new tiles on the floor, and each tiles actually take 10 minutes, and the size is 16 by 16. So for total 300 square feet, how much time we will need? So this is known as parametric estimating. That means using some arithmetic, multiplication, addition, referring some unit measure. If you calculate the total amount of time, then that is known as analogous estimate, parametric estimate, using some parameter or variable.
রেজা ভাই, এখানে অ্যানালগাস এস্টিমেটিংটা মোর অর লেস হচ্ছে কি একই কাজ, কমপ্লেক্সিটি কম বা বেশি হতে পারে। আর প্যারামেট্রিকটা মোর অফ ঐকিক নিয়ম, আপনি অন্য একটা ভিডিওতে বলেছিলেন।
ঐকিক নিয়ম আর কি, arithmetic. Yes.
জি, থ্যাংক ইউ।
And 3-point estimating. 3-point estimating, there is a formula. I will discuss that formula in next slides. So I am skipping for the time being. Let me discuss about bottom-up estimating. What is bottom-up estimating? Say, for example, you are going to estimate activity A. All right, but the size of the activity A is big. You cannot estimate. So what you can do, you can break down this activity into smaller components like A1, A2, and A3. All right, then you estimate A1 activity it will take 5 days, it will take say 7 days, and it will take 10 days. So now adding up this, all this duration of this activity, 5, 7, 10. So we can say this activity will take 22 days. So this is actually bottom-up estimating. We are calculating the estimate for A, breaking down that into smaller activities, and then calculating it from bottom up, we are getting the value of A. So that is known as bottom-up estimating. Okay. So let me
বটম আপ এস্টিমেটিং এর একটা এক্সাম্পল কি দেওয়া যায় এমনি রিয়েল লাইফে আপনার কোনো প্রজেক্ট থেকে?
হ্যাঁ, হতে পারে যে কোনো একটা বড় মানে চাঙ্ক অফ অ্যাক্টিভিটি যেটা বিগ দেখাচ্ছে। আমরা যখন এস্টিমেট ব্রেকডাউন করছিলাম ওয়ার্ক প্যাকেজকে, সেটা অনেক বড় সাইজ ছিল আসলে। আর যখন আমরা এস্টিমেট করতে যাচ্ছি তখন বুঝতে পারছি না যে এটা কত সময় লাগবে। তখন আমরা কি করি, তখন এই কাজটাকে আর একটু ভাঙি যে আসলে এর মধ্যে কি কি ছোট ছোট কাজ আছে। ঠিক আছে, সেই ছোট কাজগুলোর এখন আমরা ডিউরেশন বের করি। সো বের করার পরে তখন আসলে আমরা অ্যাড করে বলতে পারি যে আসলে বটম আপ অ্যাপ্রোচে যে কত সময় লাগবে উপরে কাজটা করতে।
এই মানে বটম আপ এস্টিমেটিংটা ওই ওয়াটারফলে বেশি এফেক্টিভ নাকি আমাদের অ্যাজাইল স্টাইলে বেশি এফেক্টিভ?
না, এটা সব জায়গায় মানে অ্যাজাইলে বড় কাজগুলোকে বলা হয় এপিক। তো এপিককে ওরা ভেঙে ছোট করে যাতে সহজে এস্টিমেট করা যায় আর কি। সো এটা সব জায়গায় অ্যাপ্রোপ্রিয়েট। আচ্ছা, চাঙ্ক অফ ওয়ার্ক তাহলে আপনি ভাঙবেন যাতে আসলে এস্টিমেটটা আরো পারফেক্ট হয়। সো
ভাইয়া এটা একটু জাস্ট জিজ্ঞাসা করছিলাম যে বটম আপ এস্টিমেশনের সাথে ভাইয়া তাহলে ওয়ার্ক ব্রেকডাউনের
মিল আছে
রিলেশনটা কত? মানে এটা কি আসলে ওয়ার্ক ব্রেকডাউন স্ট্রাকচারের পরে যে প্যাকেজগুলি আছে সেগুলিকে আরো ভেঙে এস্টিমেট করা?
না, ওয়ার্ক প্যাকেজ না, ওয়ার্ক প্যাকেজে তো আমরা অলরেডি টাস্কে নিয়ে আসছি। এই টাস্কে যদি আবার ভাঙার দরকার হয়, টাস্কেও কিন্তু আমরা ভাঙতে পারি, তাইলে মানে একই অ্যাপ্রোচ, জাস্ট ওই ডিকম্পোজিশন করতেছি আর কি, বাট ইট ইজ নাও at task level. Okay, so analogous estimating is you need to understand the difference between this bottom up and analogous estimating. Analogous estimating, we are using historical data, and this is actually top-down approach. Top-down approach, analogous estimating, because from top, using analogy, we are saying that this task will take this much time. So analogous estimating is top-down, and this is not actually very accurate. Accuracy is low, but it is actually very fast. All right, because from the top you are saying that it will take this much time, and if you say bottom up is actually time consuming. It will take more time, but the accuracy is high because you are now breaking the task into a smaller subtask, right? So it will take time, but the accuracy will be high. So this is the difference between analogous estimation, and analogous estimation is also known as top-down approach or top-down estimating, and bottom-up estimating is the vice versa of analogous estimating. So this is actually faster but low accuracy, and bottom-up estimating is it may take time, but its accuracy is high. So it is not necessary that all the estimation technique you need to use in a single project. In different project, you may use different kind of estimation. All right. So tailoring. Here you have to remember tailoring. Not all the tools is required for your project. Okay, next is data analysis, and two analysis you can use. One is alternative analysis that we already talked. So you can have plan A, B, also for estimation of this task. Reserve analysis is very important. Reserve analysis. This reserve analysis from now on, most probably in every chapter you see this reserve analysis. So what is actually reserve analysis? So term this reserve. So reserve means we are actually keeping some time, extra time or buffer time. We can use also buffer term, extra time or buffer time to what? To fight with or to minimize the risk or unwanted situation in the project. So for example, for one task A, if we say straightway it will take just 10 days, then what will happen? If there is any risk, say for example, the programmer who was working on this activity, he is on, he is, what I say, he is ill, then what will happen? You cannot finish this activity on 10 days. So what we do actually, we keep not the ideal time always. Ideal time is the exact time, 10 days. No, what we do, we actually keep some additional time to handle the risk, different kind of risks that maybe the employee on leave or unwanted sickness or any political situation. Earlier, what happened for political situations? Sometimes there are hartal strike, and we actually sometimes miss the office, so we can't work. We cannot work. So for those kind of unwanted situations, unknown situation or known unknown situation, we use buffer time for activities. That is known as reserve analysis. So you have to analyze for each activity, is there any buffer need to keep to handle those unwanted situations. So this reserve analysis is two type. This reserve is two type. One is actually we say this as contingency reserve. Contingency reserve. So reserve is two types. One is contingency reserve. বাংলায় বলে আসলে আপদকালীন reserve. Another one is management reserve. Management reserve. So reserve is divided into two parts. One is contingency reserve, and one is management reserve. So what is contingency reserve? That is actually to deal with known unknown situations. You can write known unknown situation, known unknown situations. তার মানে জানা কি known unknown, জানা অজানা situation. একটা হচ্ছে unknown unknown situation, unknown unknown situation. এটার জন্য আমরা ম্যানেজমেন্ট রিজার্ভ ইউজ করি. So let me give you an example to understand the difference between contingency reserve, known unknown situation, and unknown unknown situation. For example, in Dhaka, so in the rainy season, what happens? Lot of rains will happen, we know. So, for example, the Roads and Highway Division, Department of Bangladesh, they plan that in the rainy season will not do any roads and highways work because for the rain, it will the work will be hampered. So they actually choose to work on in winter season. All right. In winter season, there can also be rain, but from climate, from our from our earlier history, we can easily find out how much rain it happens in the rainy season, in the winter. Say 1% chance of rain on winter season. So if 1% rain happen at that project time, then the work will be hampered by 1%. But in the rainy season, the chance of raining is 80%, say. All right, the work will be hampered by 80%. That's why they plan to work in winter. But in winter, there is also chance of raining by 1% or 2%. So this is known as known unknown situation. So if we can put some buffer for dealing with this 2% rain, then that is known as known unknown situation, because we know how much chances of rain is having in Bangladesh on winter. But for example, on winter, in winter, first time in Bangladesh, say you are seeing what I say, ice হয়ে গেল, তুষারপাত হলো, তুষারপাত হয়ে গেল এবং 10 ইঞ্চি বরফ জমে গেল. So that is actually unknown situation that we actually never planned because we have not seen that earlier. All right. So these two situations can happen in for any activity, for any project. So for each activity, you have to find out this known unknown situation if there is any, and you have to keep contingency reserve for, as we are in time schedule chapter, we have to keep contingency on time, about time. So 10 days, we may put another 2 days buffer. And management reserve, that is actually unknown situation that we cannot see beforehand. So this management reserve, if required, then this reserve will be given by the management. All right, not you are estimating. This will be estimated and given by your top management. All right, so this is the main difference between contingency reserve and management reserve. Another important thing is project manager, PM, is having the discretion to use contingency reserve. But here, PM is not having any discretion to use the management reserve because it is on the hand of the sponsor or the top management. So if situation occurs, then you will request the management for extra fund, additional fund. Then if management approve, then only you can use that fund. All right. And another very important thing is contingency reserve is part of schedule baseline, but management reserve is not part of schedule baseline. All right. So these are the difference between these two reserves. And you are surely going to get 1 or 2 questions from this reserve, these two type of reserves. So in my slides, especially in cost chapter, we will again see reserve chapter, because in schedule chapter, we are talking about schedule reserve, time reserve. But in cost chapter, we will again see this, and we will then discuss about cost reserve, how much money extra money we need to put for contingency reserve and also for management reserve. So there you will see the detail of the difference between these two. But the concept is same. Here we are talking about schedule, time, and there in cost chapter we will talk about cost. Okay, 7 is voting. So if there is any conflict, so always it is better make consensus between a team to estimate about anything. Don't push or don't impose anything on your team. Let the team decide how much time it is required to complete an activity. And meeting is also common because we are doing planning. So what we are getting from here, duration estimates. You see, this is actually plural. That means for each activity, we are estimating durations. And also basis of estimate. That is very important, basis of estimates. In cost chapter, you also will see basis of estimates. What is basis of estimates? That means, say, for example, your vendor, you need 50 laptops in your project, 50 laptops. All right, and your vendor in the contract terms said that he needs, your vendor needs 4 months to deliver the laptops. So these documents, supporting documents, is actually basis of estimate. So if management asks you why 50 laptops taking 4 months time, then this supporting document will help you to answer, because vendor will bring this laptops from Singapore and they will take 3 months or 4 months of time. And this is well written in your document. So when you are estimating for each activity, if there is any supporting data, information, documents, that you also keep with you. All right. So you can actually give answers. So these are the supporting data, information of each activity based on which you are actually estimating duration of activities. Okay, so one thing we'll see, 3-point estimating. There is a formula, we'll see.
Raja bhai, activity and task, we are using it interchangeably, right?
Right. But in Chromebook, mostly activity is used, not task.
Okay.
All right, so detail you will see here. And let me discuss about the 3-point estimation. You will get one math from this formula. Okay, so this is the first formula we are seeing, 3-point estimating. So rather estimating the task duration by a single number, we can actually use three numbers. 3-point. From there, actually 3-point estimating came. Why you are using 3-point estimate? That is also known as part program evaluation and review technique. To deal with risk, we actually, for one activity, say for activity A, we actually don't estimate a single point. Rather, we consider three things for activity A. What are those three things? One is, if everything goes wrong, how much time it will require to finish activity A. That means in worst scenario, maximum how much time we need to finish A. For example, that is actually known as pessimistic estimation. For example, maybe we need 20 days to finish the activity when everything is in worst situation. Not in our favor, it is actually against our favor. Now we are actually, for the same activity, we will estimate what is the optimistic value. That means in the best case scenario, if everything is in our favor, minimum how much time we need to finish this job, finish the task or activity. Say, for example, it will take only 8 days if everything is in our favor. And another thing is most likely. Most likely means মানে আমরা বাংলায় যেটা বলি সচরাচর। In general, actually what happens? What is the middle ground? So maybe it will take 12 days to complete. কারণ আসলে will not, for activity will not get the best scenario, and we also not face the worst scenario. Not the best scenario or not face the worst scenario. Maybe we will see the middle thing. There will be some worst scenarios, some best scenarios. So it will take 12 days. That is actually known as most likely. So the formula is to estimate activity using this part formula. This is the formula. Duration of that activity, estimate T means time. So pessimistic value, time, 4 into most likely plus the value of optimistic duration and divided by 6. So in this case, in our case, if we add this, use this formula, what will happen? 20 is the pessimistic value plus 4 into what? Most likely 8, right? 8, sorry, 12. And what is the optimistic value? 8. And we have to divide by 6. So if you calculate this, what will happen? 20 plus 48, then 8, 56, 76, right? 76 divided by 6. What will be the result? 12 point something. That means আমাদের 12.5 দিন লাগবে আর কি। So considering the worst case scenario and best case scenario and also the most likely scenario, we are getting the estimation for this activity is 12.5 days. All right, so research oriented projects where actually we cannot actually estimate exactly, and most of the times in the project, for most of the activities we cannot actually calculate the exact value, then we can use 3-point estimating, considering the risks or uncertainty of the project. So this is actually known as 3-point estimating, and this is the general formula, and this formula is known as beta deviation formula for normal distribution, normal case. But another variation of the same formula is triangular distribution formula. So this formula, if there is nothing mentioned, then you will always use beta distribution. This is also known as weighted average 3-point estimating formula. Weighted average, why? Because 1, 4 plus 1, 6. Right? For 6 items, we are dividing by 6. We are actually calculating weighted average. But this one, triangular distribution, we are not actually calculating weighted average. At the top, there are 3 items and there is no 4 here. So we are dividing by 3. So if in the exam it is mentioned that this is a triangular distribution task, distribution activity or triangle distribution estimation into use, then you will use this formula. If nothing is mentioned or mentioned it is beta distribution or weighted average distribution, then you will always use this formula. This is
স্যার
the
মানে
main
বেটা
formula.
ডিস্ট্রিবিউশনের ক্ষেত্রে স্যার 6 দিয়ে
Alright.
মানে 6 কোথা থেকে আসলো বা 6 কি জন্য দেব স্যার এটা একটু বলবেন?
একটু আগে তো বললাম যে because you are at the top you are having 6 items. That is, so you are actually calculating the average. So number of items at the top is 6. So that's why you are dividing by 6.
ওকে স্যার।
Shahin.
জি স্যার। জি স্যার।
And here actually item number is 3. That's why we are actually just calculating average. So we are dividing by 3. All right. Okay. So there is a example here, and there are actually other things of that formula that is not mentioned in PMBOK. That is actually you can also calculate the standard deviation and variance of the activity and also range for the activity. So all these are actually statistical terms, right? So how can you calculate a standard deviation? The same thing, we are using pessimistic minus optimistic value divided by 6. This way we can calculate standard deviation. And we know that variance is the what? Square. Variance is the square of standard deviation. So just this value, square of this value is known as variance. So what actually standard deviation means? That means the data is how much distributed from the mean or the average. So if the standard deviation is very high for one activity, that means risk is high for that activity. I am talking about the interpretation of standard deviation. So after calculating standard deviation using this formula, if you find that the value is high, that means the risk for this activity is high. Also, if you see the variance, if the standard deviation is high, variance will also be high. That means there is high probability of variation of your task to complete within the certain time. There is variance. And if you consider that standard deviation to find out the range, then you can use the value of this result, EAD plus standard deviation. So let me explain these 3 in the example in the next slide, then you will understand. So for example, for one task, we have it is mentioned that optimistic estimate is 10 days, most likely is 16 days, and pessimistic is 28 days. So using the beta distribution formula, we are getting that it will take 17 days using the beta distribution formula. Now we are calculating a standard deviation, and we got the standard deviation using the standard deviation formula, and it is 3. And variance is the just square of standard deviation, so it is 9. Now what is the range? Range is actually this value plus minus standard deviation. What does it mean? In the best case scenario, it will minimum it will take 14 days, and maximum it will take 20 days. Within this range, we are sure that we can finish the work, finish the activity, finish the task. So this is the range. So sometimes it is required to actually inform the sponsor or stakeholders how much range the activity will take to finish the activity. So this is the minimum range. Maybe this activity will finish in 14 days, or at maximum it will take 20 days. It will not exceed 20 days. So this is actually range of the activity. So you may get 1 or 2 questions from this formula.
Raja bhai, if the standard deviation is high and the variance is high, then what does it infer? What does it mean?
That task is a lot of risks is
Risk, risk
associated with
associated.
risk associated with the task.
Okay.
All right, and if you calculate the range, you will see the range is also big. All right, so you cannot actually say specifically that it will take say this much time. Actually, it is actually broaden the range. So that means why this is happening because of the risk or the uncertainty. So we actually use to standard deviation to find out the to deal with the uncertainty or risk. So for this discussion, Nasser Bhai and others, please read out the Rita chapter. Rita book, same section.
Okay.
If you have any confusion, it will be clear.
Okay, Raja bhai.
And this standard deviation, variance, and range, this is actually not mentioned in PMBOK. These three additional formula is only mentioned in Rita book.
Okay.
And about reserve analysis, as I already explained, known unknowns and unknown unknowns, you will get everything here. And also, when you will read cost chapter, there I actually use a table to show you the difference. Okay, so we will take, this is a very long chapter. So we'll take break at 9. Huh? Decision making. So decision making, we have learned a lot of things about decision making, right? But in this chapter, one new thing is introduced in 6th edition that is actually taken from Agile practices. In Agile arena, this tool is used for voting, decision making. So they actually, the name of the technique is feast to 5 or feast of 5. All right. So using your 5, not talking, not using your mouth, not using your voice, you actually taking decision uh, or vote from your team using just only hand. So for any decision, if you ask who are uh, in favor of the decision and who are not in favor of decision, then if someone raises his hand and show like this, that means he is totally disagree with this proposition or is against of this. Huh? And if you show 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 means full support. Yes, I am okay with this. But is 4 is also somehow okay. 3 is also okay. All right. These fingers 4, 3, this actually means the degree of support. Huh? Degree of support. How much I am supporting this. And if someone shows actually 1 or 2, that means he actually somewhat agree, but he mostly is disagree. So if anyone shows 2, 1 or মুষ্টিবদ্ধ figure hand যদি দেখায়, then actually you need to talk with them why they are actually against of this decision and try to convince them or try to understand their argument and then actually again take vote. So by this way, by 1 or 2 iterations, you can actually find out the take the final decision. So this is known as feast to 5 or feast of 5, using only your hand and fingers. So you might get one question from this because this is the new tools and technique. Okay, so output we are getting divisional estimates, and if you use range, then you can actually say like this, plus minus 2 days. Even you can say 15% probability. So you can actually use probability distribution also to calculate your estimation. That will discuss in the next process, develop schedule process, we can use simulation technique. So there usually we will discuss how we can say about probability using probability distribution, how we can calculate the project schedule. That simulation and another one important simulation technique that is mentioned in PMBOK, that is actually known as Monte Carlo analysis, that will discuss in later process. What are those and how actually using those distribution we can calculate, or we can say the probability of finishing one task or the project duration. So we are going to take break, 5 minutes break. We'll start at 9.
স্যার
The development schedule process. Yeah.
আপনার রেগুলার লেকচার স্যার আপনার চ্যানেলে কি বাংলাতে আছে কি? একটু ভালো মতো বোঝার জন্য মাঝে মধ্যে একটু
হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা তো
সেম
বাংলায় আছে।
লেকচার না স্যার?
হুম, হুম।
ওকে স্যার, ঠিক আছে।
আমি আবার শেয়ার করে দিচ্ছি আপনাকে।
জি স্যার।
আমরা 5 মিনিটে ব্রেকে যাচ্ছি, এরপরে 9টায় শুরু করব। All right, let's start. So শাহিদ আপনি পাইছেন, আমি যে লিংক দিয়ে দিচ্ছি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে এবং চ্যাট বক্সে। সো আমরা কি শুরু করবো?